What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to create the patterns for this bustier with a B-sized cup. If you want to see how I made the pattern as well as the test and sample towards the end, make sure to keep on watching to see the full creative process. I worked with the following tools in this particular tutorial and I have them laid out flat here. I needed to work with my pattern master and my set square. I have my marker pen, pencil, my paper scissors, I have sharpener, eraser and some sellotape. I also got myself my measuring tape to take down my measurements, as well as some pins to cut out my sample later on. The plan that I'm working with here is my bodice with front shoulder darts, which I'm going to link down below if you haven't seen it already, because that's the plan we're going to be working from to create the patterns in this video. So first off, I'm going to draw on the front plan a circle that has a radius of 7.5 centimeters, or about approximately 3 inches. This is the dimension you need for a B cup, but I've linked down below an amazing video by a lady called Diana, and she showed how to grade the cups up to a D and so on and so forth. So if you want to check that out, make sure to do so. It's a really great one. So once I have my dimensions marked down, I'm just going ahead to draw in a shape. Luckily I had a bowl that measured the same sort of radius as what I needed to draw, but if you don't have one, you can use a compass to help you achieve a perfect circle. So once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and mark my bust line on the center front edge like so, and I'm going to be marking a line that is 1/2 inch below that bust line point. So once I have done that, I'm going to draw in that line so it meets the center front edge, and we will not be working with the bust line that I initially drew. So next thing, I'm going to draw in the cup style line starting from that center front edge. I'm using a pencil because I have the freedom to go back and change the shape if I want to, and I'm just going back in to refine the lines using the curved side of my pattern master. So the curved line goes from the center front edge all the way to the side seam on this particular front panel, and from that curved line I'm going to be marking downwards 1.5 inches. This is going to become sort of the top piece of the cup. You want to ensure that this particular piece here does not go below your bust point, else I don't know, it just looks a bit odd. So just keep that in mind when you're drawing in this particular panel in place. So I'm just connecting my lines like so. So I have this top area demarcated, which is going to become the top of the cup, and then the two bottom pieces will become the bottom. So I'm just going back in with my pattern master to draw in the side seam for, or the side edge for the bustier. We're going to be ignoring the darts when we trace off that top panel as well. And for a more defined fit in the underbust area, I'm just reshaping my dart like so. This is something I've discovered that I needed to do for sort of corset style bustiers or tops, because you really want them to fit snugly, almost with negative ease around your body. So now that we've sort of have the front plan done and in place, we can go ahead and trace out the different panels. I'm going to start out with the panels for the cup, but for the top one here, we are going to be ignoring the dart because we just want one piece that goes across smoothly the top. So now I'm just taping in the dot like so we don't have any excess measurements that we don't need on that top area. So now I'm just redrawing the top of the curved line, because when you fold in that dart, the lines would not be straight anymore. One would sort of be higher than the other. So I went ahead to reconnect that, so I have a clear curved line to trace onto a fresh pattern paper that is going to become sort of the top bust cup or panel 1 for this particular piece here. So I'm just going ahead to trace out the different sides of this curved panel here, and afterwards I'm going to add my 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around. Don't forget to add your notches, especially at points where pattern pieces meet together. I've gone ahead and cut out the pattern piece like so, indicating what side is my center front, so when it's time for me to join it to the bottom pieces of the cup, I don't get confused. I went ahead to also trace out panel 2 and 3, and I've just added notches here, 2 on the panel that is closer to the side and 1 on the panel that is closer to the center front, so I know what actually goes on what side and I don't really get confused when it's time for me to sew these pieces together. So now that I have the cup panels done, I'm going to trace out the other front patterns and add my 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around, because I intend to make a sample and check if this plan actually works or if I need to make any changes. So this is my first center front piece like so, which will be cut on a fold. You also need to trace out your side front, which you cut 2 pieces, 1 for the left and 1 for the right. Remember to transfer your notches as well, because those will become really handy when it's time to sew. So I'm going in now to draw in my back neckline, and I'm going for a curved neckline that sort of dips a little bit lower than the bust line on the center back, and we're going to have 2 panels for the back. I'm just adding in notches like so, so I know what parts of the back panels go together and what side is the center back. So I'm going to go in and trace out my back patterns and add my 1 centimeter seam allowance where necessary, because this plan already has a seam allowance on the center back and on the side, so I only need to add on the top, bottom and where the dart meets. So remember to add your grain line and notches as well, because after this we're going to go ahead and cut these patterns onto fabric and see how they work. So these are all of my pattern pieces done. I just taped them down so you can clearly see how many we ended up with. We have 3 pieces for the cup itself, 2 for the front and 2 for the back. If you want something that has straps, you can go ahead and make a strap pattern, but as you can see for the side, I just wanted to show that you want to ensure that the side of the back and the side of the front, they sort of meet and they connect in a way that works. So next up, I went ahead to cut out my pattern pieces onto fabric. I'm just using this simple burgundy cotton drill material. I cut 2 pieces of each pattern except the center front, which I cut on the fold, because I'm just making 1 layer here. These are the number of pieces I'll be working with, but if you want to line your bustier, you will need to cut all of this again in your lining material. So in terms of assembly, the first thing you will need to do is you need to join the bottom pieces of the cups before you join it to the top piece over here. So I'm just going to pin them together like so, and because we're joining 2 curved ends, you would have to ease 1 piece into the other. But for this particular side of the cup, it was relatively simple and straightforward to do. All you just had to do was stretch certain parts so they meet and they work together. After doing that, I went ahead to press my pieces nice and flat so I can go ahead and join it to the top cup panel like so. Now this particular seam here is one that you want to try and get as perfect as possible, because this would show and it doesn't really look very nice if you have any puckerings or gatherings, which I ended up with and I really didn't like. So I'm just going ahead to pin the other side so I have it ready to be stitched together, and it feels like stitching in a sleeve into an armhole. I swear, like it was a lot of easing, a lot of pulling. So if you want something that will be a lot easier to work with, you can go ahead and do a basting stitch by hand on the top piece, so that sort of helps you to ease the extra bits into the bottom piece of the cup. So I'm just going up to finish this seam here, and I sewed on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, and I gave my cups a nice press. And aside from the one on the left that looks a little bit dodgy towards the end, I think this turned out okay for a first attempt. I'm pretty sure by the next time I do another one, it will come out a lot better. So for the front, I'm just going to go ahead and join my front pieces together so I have it ready for the cups to be fixed in. I've just pinned them in place, and I'm going to be taking this to my domestic machine and sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance and pressing that seam open as well. So once that front panel is ready, I'm going to go ahead and pin the cups into the opening like so. So this seam is yet another tricky one, but if you take it nice and slowly, it actually works. So the aim is to fix the cup into the opening that you have on the left and on the right hand side, so it actually completes the front of this bustier. So you have to ease the cup itself into the opening and just take your time. I swear, if you say you want to rush this thing, you just have to do it like a few times before you get it right. So what I did was I sectioned this seam into smaller bite-sized chunks using my pin, and one section at a time I was able to successfully sew in the cups into the bustier. So this is what my front looks like at the moment. It helps to press this piece on a curved surface, you know, the type you use for shoulders, something that has an elevated sort of rounded edge, because it will help to hold the shape of the cups in place. With that done, it's time to go ahead and join the side and mid seams to connect the front to the back, so I have an entire piece that I can actually put on, try and see how it fits and sits on my body. Alright, so I have quickly put on the, shall we call this bustier for the day. I have put it on just to check if it sits nicely on my body, and the only thing I can see clearly when I tried it on is this top part was a bit loose, so if I would bend over, my boobs would literally like fall out. So I know I need to adjust the pattern for this top panel, especially around this top edge here, for this side and that side as well. The bottom bit seems okay because I have a padded bra underneath, since this thing doesn't have any padding or wiring to give my bust some lift. But that is one adjustment I'll need to make. The body, I would say, is a little bit loose, so I can take away about 1 centimeter from the side seam. As you can see, there's just a little bit of room, but if you want your bustier to have some ease, you can leave it like that. On the center back, let me see if I can show you guys what I mean. There is like 1 to 2 centimeters extra that I don't need, that I would take out from my pattern, and just to make this a lot more fitted on my body. So those are the two main corrections I'm going to do on my pattern, but it actually turned out all right. I thought this was going to be a lot more flat, but it actually cups my bust in a really nice way. This is where the bottom of the cup is, and I can feel that is where sort of the bottom of my bra is. So I guess it's sort of a good fit. I'm sure by the next one I make, like the second sample I make after this, it will turn out a lot better when I decide to make it in my final fabric as well. I just quickly wanted to show you guys sort of where you would need to take out any excess for this top panel here. So from the sample I made, it turns out that there is about 3-4 centimeters up there that I need to get rid of. And what I ended up doing was I made another pattern here that is just a little bit shorter on the end. So let me see if I can show you guys here. So it's just a little bit shorter on the ends there, like that. So I get rid of some of the excess, hence making the top part a lot smaller and a lot more fitted when it's joined to the other two panels on the bottom. I've added 1 centimeter seam allowance, that's why it looks a little bit closer to this edge there. But by the time we sew everything up, hopefully the second sample should fit a lot nicer than this first one I have on right now. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial. It was definitely a lot of fun to create, and it's a project and a technique I haven't tried before, and I look forward to incorporating into future garments that I make. If you did enjoy this video, please share your thoughts and ideas down below. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until my next video, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.